My dead girlfriend keeps sending me videos of myself sleeping from inside my closet. I had convinced myself that the worst part of losing Lena would be the silence. No more late calls on her way home from work. No more voice notes rambling about some customer who had made her day unbearable. No more off-key singing bleeding through my tiny apartment when she showered. I thought grief would sound like nothing at all. Instead, it sounded like the soft, endless hum of my new phone screen as I scrolled through things I did not care about at 3 in the morning. The room was dark except for that cold blue glow and the faint red digits of my alarm clock. 3:07, 3:13, 3:21. I lay on my side in the same spot I slept when she stayed over, as if I had left space for her without meaning to. The other half of the bed was untouched, the sheets still tucked tight. 2 weeks since the accident. 2 weeks of people saying things like at least she did not suffer, and it was so sudden, as if those words could soften anything. 2 weeks of police phrases I tried not to replay. Skid marks. Momentary loss of control. No foul play suspected. My thumb moved without my brain. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Another video muted on my feed. Another headline I would not remember. I had bought the new phone that afternoon because the old one would not stop freezing. The guy at the store transferred everything over from the cloud. Contacts, photos, messages, everything but her. I had checked. Of course I had checked. I was just about to give up on sleep entirely when the phone vibrated in my hand, a stronger buzz that signaled an actual message, not another app notification. I flinched despite myself. New message from unknown. I might have ignored it, but the preview flashed a name above the number as my contacts synced in the background, filling in details like they were stitching flesh over bone. Lena, with that little purple heart I had added as a joke the night we stayed up until dawn talking about everything and nothing. The screen wobbled slightly in my grip. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. Some phantom contact the transfer had resurrected. A glitch. The cloud coughing up old data it did not know what else to do with. Grief does strange things, they tell you. It makes you see people in crowds who are not there, hear voices in the next room. I forced my breath to steady. It is just the backup, I told myself. Some bug. Her name autofilling because the number used to be hers. Still, it took me longer than it should have to tap the notification. The chat thread was empty except for the one new attachment. No message, no text. Just a video file with the generic gray thumbnail slowly resolving into something as the preview loaded. My bedroom. Same angle I was in now, only darker. My bed a vague shape, the red digits of my alarm clock the only color. The perspective was low and narrow, like someone filming from inside a slightly open doorway. No. Not a doorway. The closet. My thumb hovered over the play button. The small, logical part of my brain piped up. It is probably something from an old night. Some recording you forgot about. One of those random backups you never see until the software spits it back out. But the air felt wrong. Heavy. I tapped play. The video was silent at first, just the faint rustle of digital static. The camera did not move. It was fixed, watching me. Because it was me in the bed, on my side, the same way I was lying now. The same tangle of blanket twisted around one ankle, the same cheap lamp on the nightstand. On the chair by the wall, the identical pile of clothes I had dropped there yesterday when I was too tired to hang them up. Last night, my mind supplied quietly. That is last night. I watched myself breathe. The rise and fall of my shoulders. A small twitch in my hand as I shifted in my sleep. The alarm clock in the corner of the frame read 2:48, then 2:49 as the seconds ticked soundlessly away. My heart thudded against my ribs. I knew every inch of that image because it was this room, this bed, this closet. I knew I did not own any cameras. I never had. I barely remembered to cover the laptop webcam when I read those stories about people being watched. The video went on for a full minute. Nothing happening. just my sleeping body and the faint line of the closet door framing the edges of the shot like a pair of dark, patient hands. At 58 seconds, the footage flickered. The darkness inside the closet deepened just a shade, like something had stepped closer to the lens. And then, very close to the microphone, so soft it was almost swallowed by static, a whisper tore through the silence. "Wake up." It was distorted, stretched thin, but the shape of it, the rhythm, climbed under my skin. Lena's voice. I stopped the video with shaking fingers. My first instinct was to hurl the phone across the room, but rationality clawed its way back just enough to keep me from breaking the only thing connecting me to the outside world. A prank, I told myself, grabbing onto the thought like a rope. Someone cloned her number. Someone hacked something. People did that, did not they? They pulled sick jokes, especially when stories hit the news. Maybe someone had filmed me through the window. Maybe there was an app I did not know about. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed and stood up so fast the room dipped. The closet door was closed now, a plain white panel in the shadows. I crossed the floor, every step louder than it should have been. This is absurd, I thought. You are jumping at nothing. I wrapped my fingers around the handle and pulled. The door opened with its usual sticky click. Inside, the hanging clothes swayed slightly from the movement. Shirts, jackets, the black dress shirt I had worn to the funeral, all packed too tight on the rail. On the floor, 2 boxes of old textbooks, a tangle of shoes, the small suitcase Lena used on weekends away before we started staying in more than we went out. I crouched, moved things around. No camera, no wires, no strange devices balanced on shelves. I even lifted the lid of one of the boxes, half expecting to find a blinking light staring back at me. Just paper and dust. I backed out and shut the door more forcefully than necessary, as if that act alone could close off the feeling of being watched. On the bed, the phone screen had gone dark. I picked it up, opened the thread again. The video sat there, quiet and accusing. I pressed and held until the option appeared and deleted it. Then I went into the settings, blocked the number, erased the contact entirely so there would be no purple heart, no name. Gone. Clean. It is just grief. I muttered into the empty room. You are tired. You are seeing patterns where there are none. I set the phone face down on the nightstand and lay back down, staring into the ceiling until it blurred. Eventually, exhaustion wore down the sharp edges of my fear. My eyelids grew heavy. The hum of the city outside faded to a dull, distant throb. Somewhere between waking and sleep, I heard the faint buzz of the phone again. Then again. A steady, insistent vibration rattling against the wood of the nightstand. I told myself not to look. I told myself I had blocked the number, that whatever it was could wait until morning, that nothing on a screen could hurt me. The buzzing did not stop. With a groan, I rolled over and reached out, fingers fumbling for the device. The screen lit my face as I turned it over, my eyes squinting at the sudden brightness. New message from unknown. Another video. This time, the thumbnail was not just my bed in the dark. The closet door was in frame again, the gap a narrow strip of black. And in that blackness, at about the height where a face would be, if someone were standing very still inside, a pale shape hovered between the hanging clothes, hints of features barely there, as if something was leaning forward, just enough to be seen. I did not watch the second video that night. I told myself I was being careful, that nothing good ever came from feeding a nightmare when it was still dark outside. The real reason was simpler. I was afraid that if I saw more, I would not be able to persuade myself there was any ordinary explanation left. So I turned the screen face down, left it buzzing once more like a heart with an arrhythmia, and lay there until exhaustion finally dragged me under. When I woke up, light was leaking in around the edges of the curtains. Gray, thin, but enough to make the room feel less like a closed mouth. For a few seconds, I forgot about the night before. Then my gaze fell on the phone on the nightstand, and memory returned all at once, like falling back into cold water. The notification was still there when I picked it up. New video. Morning makes things smaller, people say. Monsters shrink in daylight. I held on to that as I opened the message. The clip started almost exactly like the first one. My bedroom, same angle from the closet, same hum of static under the silence. Only this time, the closet door was open wider, a good third of the frame a strip of deeper darkness. I watched myself sleeping again, on my side, turned slightly toward the gap. In the washed-out colors of the night vision, I looked thinner, fragile, someone I might cross the street to avoid making eye contact with. At first, nothing moved. Then, as the seconds crawled past, the shadows inside the closet shifted. Something pale edged forward, so slowly that if I had not been staring, I would have missed the movement. A forehead, a cheek, the slope of shoulders. Long hair, too bright against the dark behind it, hanging stringy around a face that was just out of clarity. My throat closed. Around that pale throat, catching the faint glow of the alarm clock, was a small, familiar glint. A necklace. A tiny silver charm shaped like a crescent moon, the one she used to fiddle with whenever she was nervous. The one I had watched them place carefully on her chest before they closed the casket. The camera in the footage began to tighten its focus, drawing closer to the figure without any jerk of a hand, any human wobble. It was like the lens itself was gliding forward, smoothing out the distance between us. The figure leaned more into view. I could not see her eyes, only the hint of a mouth. The line of a nose I knew too well from photographs I still had not been able to delete. Every instinct screamed at me to stop the video, to fling the phone away, do anything but watch. I did not move. At the very end, just before the footage cut out, white text bloomed across the lower half of the screen, sharp against the grainy darkness, as if it had always been there waiting to be revealed. You left me. I let the phone fall onto the bed. The words sat there in my mind, louder than any voice. For a long time, I just breathed, counting each inhale like it might be my last calm one. The part of me that still wanted some rational foothold started throwing possibilities around. Deepfake, edited footage, someone using old images of her, of us, to get to me. Some cruel stranger, some twisted friend. But the necklace, the way it hung, slightly crooked because the clasp was weak and always slipped around to the front. The exact way the charm caught light. You do not fake something like that by accident. You left me. The accusation did not come from the screen anymore. It came from somewhere much closer. Memories did not flood in so much as seep, slow and poisonous. Lena smiling across my kitchen table the first time she stayed over, talking about how she hated the dark ever since she was a kid. How she slept with some kind of light on every night. The bathroom light, the hall light, the glow of her phone on the nightstand. You cannot see what is coming if everything is pitch black, she had said, half laughing, twisting the moon charm between her fingers. I need proof the world is still there when I wake up. Later, when we moved from shy dates to something messier, the arguments started. Stupid things at first. Dishes, late replies, then bigger things. The way I shut down when she asked about my past. Her need to film everything. Me cooking, us driving. The sky when it looked like it might break open. If you do not record it, how do you know it happened? She would say, holding her phone up, catching our reflections in the black glass. The night she died did not arrive as a full picture. It came in splinters. Rain on the windshield, smearing the streetlights into long streaks. Her profile in the dashboard glow, tight with anger. My hands on the wheel, fingers aching from gripping too hard. We had been fighting. Again. I do not even remember how it started, only that it spiraled into old grievances. She said I never listened. I said she wanted too much. She said she was tired of feeling like an afterthought. I said something I regretted the second it left my mouth. There was a curve coming up. I knew that road. We had driven it a dozen times. The sign flashed by, reflective paint screaming a warning. I remember looking at her instead of the road, seeing her eyes shine wet, Her lips parted to say something she never got to finish. Then the world shuddered sideways. The squeal of tires. The fence flashing too close. The sound of metal folding in on itself like paper. When I opened my eyes, the car was at an impossible angle, nose buried in the ditch, rain coming in through the broken windshield. Everything hurt in a distant, muffled way. My side of the car was less crushed. The door resisted, then gave when I shoved with my shoulder. I crawled out into the wet, gasping gravel digging into my palms. Behind me, from inside the twisted frame, I heard her. "Evan," she whispered, so thin I almost thought I imagined it. "Help! Please, do not go." The sound of sirens was there too, faint but getting closer, blue and red far off through the trees. I remember standing there, swaying, looking back at the ruined car, at the shape of her trapped in the passenger seat. At the shattered glass, the smell of fuel. I remember another sound in my head, louder than the sirens or her voice. A cold, clear awareness of everything I stood to lose if I stayed. What they would find in the blood tests. What questions they would ask about the timeline. About the messages from earlier that evening. About who had really been at fault. I turned away. I went into the trees, branches clawing at my clothes, mud sucking at my shoes. I kept walking until the sirens were just a memory and my lungs burned. You left me. On the bed, my hands had curled into fists without me noticing. I forced them open, flexed my fingers. The guilt I had pressed down so hard for 2 weeks was back now, filling every space inside me, leaving no room for breath. The next thing I did felt like a confession I was not ready to give. I called her sister. Her voice came through raw and exhausted, and for a moment I nearly hung up. Instead, I asked the question as carefully as I could, skirting the edges of the truth. "Is there any chance someone could be using Lena's old phone?" I said. "Like, did you keep it? Or did they do something with it?" There was a small silence. Then her sister said, "We buried it with her. You know that. She was never without it. Mom wanted her to have it." Her voice shook. "The number was shut off the same week. Why?" "Nothing," I lied. "Just some spam calls. I thought maybe—" "Evan, the phone is in the ground," she said, sharper now. "Whatever you are getting, it is not from her." After we hung up, I stared at the call log. Then I brought up the number that had been messaging me and hit dial. No ring. No normal failed connection tone. Just a flat, hollow sound that went on, like listening to air in a place that had not been opened in a long time. I hung up before it finished. Almost immediately, the screen lit up. "You remember?" A second later, "You heard me." Then, "Why did you close your eyes?" Each message landed like a small blow, the vibration of the phone echoing in my bones. I wanted to shut it off, throw it in a drawer, walk out, and never come back. But the idea of not seeing what came next was somehow worse. Hours passed like that, me pacing the tiny apartment, sitting, standing, picking the phone up and putting it down. The messages stopped for a while, leaving me alone with the ticking of the clock and the muffled noises of other people's ordinary lives through the thin walls. By late afternoon, my head throbbed. I went to turn the phone off, thumb hovering over the power icon like I was about to pull a plug on a life support machine. Before I could press it, a new notification slid across the top of the screen. One more text. One more video. "Tonight, do not pretend to be asleep." Attached to the message was a file, the same bland icon as before, but underneath, in small letters, a timestamp. Scheduled 1:33 a.m. The timestamp sat on my screen like a countdown I could not stop. Scheduled 1:33 a.m. All afternoon and evening, those numbers pulsed at the back of my skull. I tried to tell myself there was an easy solution. Leave. Go to a motel. Crash on a friend's couch. Walk until my legs gave out somewhere public and bright. But wherever I imagined going, the thought followed. What if it does not matter where you are? The first video had been from last night. The second had known what I was doing before I did. The scheduled one waited in my messages like a promise. The idea that distance or a different set of walls could protect me felt childish. So I stayed. As the sky outside the thin curtains darkened, I moved around my apartment like someone preparing for a storm no one else could see. I dragged my laptop onto the dresser opposite the closet, opened the camera app, and set it to record. The little red dot glowed in the corner, capturing the still image of my neatly shut closet door. It felt strange, using a lens as a shield after everything Lena had shown me. Her love for recording had always seemed excessive, almost superstitious. Now, I found myself copying her without meaning to. I took the heaviest chair I owned from the kitchen, the old wooden one with a scar across the seat, and wedged it under the closet handle. The legs squealed against the floor as I forced it into place. The sight of that makeshift barricade eased something in me, but only a little. Then I turned on every light. Overhead, lamp. Even the dim strip under the kitchen cabinets. The apartment looked flat and overexposed, every shadow chased to the corners. My eyes ached, but I left them all on. Finally, I sat on the bed with my back pressed against the headboard, pillows stacked behind me, phone in hand. The closet was to my right, just at the edge of my vision. The laptop's live feed showed it dead center, the chair a dark X braced against the door. Tonight, do not pretend to be asleep. I did not plan to sleep at all. Time crawled. I checked the clock so often the numbers started to blur. 1:11, 1:19, 1:27. Every small sound from the hallway made me flinch. Somewhere upstairs, a pipe knocked. A car rolled past outside, headlights smearing briefly across the ceiling. At 1:32 exactly, my phone vibrated. My stomach dropped. A slow, heavy fall, even before I looked. The notification bar showed what I already knew it would. New video received. My hands felt too big and clumsy as I unlocked the screen, opened the message thread. The file sat there beneath the last text, its thumbnail a familiar, static image of my bedroom. I hesitated, thumb hovering. The rational voice in my head had gone very quiet. There was only me, the bed, the thin walls, and the fact that whatever this was had told me it was coming. I hit play. The footage began with the same low hiss of digital noise, the same washed-out light. For a moment, I thought it was a recording from earlier in the evening, something pre-made. Then my chest tightened. On the screen, the room looked exactly as it did now. Every light blazing, the laptop glowing on the dresser, the closet door closed with the chair jammed against it. On the bed, propped against the headboard with a phone in his hand, sat me. Not the me from last night. Not some version in different clothes, in a different position. Me, right now. The way my hair stuck up unevenly at the back from running my hand through it. The exact fold of the blanket over my legs. Even the small, faint bruise on my left wrist from where I had clipped it on the counter that morning. In the corner of the frame, white numbers ticked quietly forward. 1:32:04. On the real clock on my nightstand, the time matched. I stared from the room to the image and back again, dizzy. It was like watching myself through a mirror that was a few seconds behind. On the phone's screen, the version of me in the video tightened his grip on the device, shoulders creeping up toward his ears. On the bed, my own fingers did the same without thinking. I could not tell if I was copying the recording or the other way around. The numbers in the corner shifted. 1:32:27. On the screen behind video me, the closet door shivered. It was subtle at first, just a tremor where wood met frame, but once I saw it, I could not unsee it. The chair under the handle scraped a fraction of an inch across the floor, so slowly the movement barely registered. In my real room, the air thickened. I had not moved the chair. I had not touched the door. 1:32:41. In the video, the door began to open. The handle did not turn. The chair did not tumble. Instead, the wood eased inward, the gap between door and frame widening as if something inside was pushing very patiently, very steadily from within. The chair's legs dragged, resisting, leaving pale arcs on the floorboards. The sound of it reached me through the phone's tiny speakers. Harsh, grating. A beat later, I heard the same sound behind me in real life. Not an echo from the recording, not a memory. The exact scrape of wood on wood, just over my right shoulder. My whole body locked. I kept my eyes on the phone because the alternative was turning my head toward the noise, and some old animal part of me refused. In the video, the door opened fully now, the chair finally sliding aside as if whatever forced its way out no longer cared about being gentle. Lena stepped into view. She wore the same clothes she had worn the night of the accident. The soft gray sweater with the frayed cuff, the dark jeans she always said made her feel taller. But the colors were wrong, washed out to nearly blue. Her skin had the look of something left too long in cold water, slightly swollen, lips tinged the color of old bruises. Her hair hung in wet ropes around her face, dripping even though the floor beneath her remained dry. The little crescent moon at her throat gleamed faintly, a small, absurdly bright detail in all that ruin. Her eyes, when she lifted them toward the camera, were enormous and dark, the whites showing too much around the irises, as if they had stretched. Behind her, still inside the closet's black mouth, something else moved. At first, I thought it was just the shifting of shadow from the hallway light in the video. Then one of the shapes unfolded, taller than the doorframe should allow, limbs long and thin, joints bending with a slow, insect-like precision. There were more of them. 2, 3, maybe more, packed close together in the darkness. No clear faces, just blurred ovals where features should have been, as if someone had smeared them away with a hand across wet paint. Their heads tilted in unnerving unison toward the camera. Toward me. In my real room, the scraping behind my shoulder intensified. The chair was moving, inch by inch. I could hear each leg catching on the floor, feel the vibration of it through the bed frame. On the phone, the version of me in the video squeezed his eyes shut. My own eyes stayed open, fixed on the screen, throat working uselessly. Some part of me remembered the message. Tonight, do not pretend to be asleep. Lena stepped closer to video me. The things behind her crowded nearer to the threshold, craning their blurred faces around her shoulders like curious children. She leaned down on the screen, bringing her ruined mouth close to the ear of the me who had his eyes closed. The audio strained, the noise rising to an almost unbearable whine, words buried in distortion. Then, clear as if she whispered it from the pillow beside me, the sentence slid through. We were not alone in the car. My pulse hammered so hard that for a second I thought I might black out. The guilt that had been choking me for days shifted, made room for something sharper. A cold, confused terror. Not alone. There had only been the two of us. Had there not? Behind me, the final screech of the chair sounded as it was wrenched fully away from the closet door. The version of me on the phone opened his eyes, mouth dropping in a silent reaction I did not let myself mirror. I could not sit there anymore and stare only at the version of events on a screen. The sound of wood on wood had stopped. In its place, there was a new silence, the kind that waits. Very slowly, as if moving through deep water, I turned my head toward the closet. At that exact moment, from the dresser, the steady image of the door on my laptop flickered once and then dissolved into a storm of gray and black static. For a moment after the laptop went to static, I could not tell if the sound in the room had stopped or become so loud it folded in on itself. The screen on the dresser was a swirling gray storm, the image of the closed closet door gone. The only light now came from the two bright bulbs and the phone still playing the paused frame of the video in my hand, Lena frozen mid-lean over the other me. I forced myself to look, really look, at the actual room. The chair was no longer braced under the closet handle. It sat neatly back at my desk, pushed in, as if I had finished answering emails hours ago and decided to be tidy for once. There were no drag marks across the floor, no sign it had ever moved. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard it hurt. I had not left it there. I knew I had not. I stared at the closet door. It was shut, white and unremarkable, the seam where it met the frame impossibly thin. The phone buzzed in my hand. A new text slid into the thread under the last video. "This time you come in." I stared at those words until they blurred. The pattern snapped into focus, sickeningly clear. The first time I had stayed in bed, watching myself sleep, watching the closet from a distance. The second time, I had let the past replay, stood outside my own memory while she begged. Outside the car, outside the door. Always just out of reach, just far enough away to pretend I was not choosing. The messages were not just haunting me. They were trying to push me into the one thing I had refused to do when it mattered most. Get close. My fingers were numb as I swung my legs off the bed. The room felt elongated, as if every step to the closet would take twice as long as it should. The air grew cooler as I approached, a subtle temperature drop that turned my breath thin. When I wrapped my hand around the closet handle, it felt like grabbing metal that had been left outside in winter. A painful cold radiated up into my palm. I swallowed, tasting dust and old rain and something sharper underneath. "No more watching," I whispered, though my voice barely made it past my teeth. I turned the handle and pulled. The door opened too smoothly. There was no resistance from hangers or boxes, no thump as it hit the wall. Beyond the frame, the darkness was thick, not the familiar clutter of clothes and cardboard I expected, but a blackness that went on and on. It should have been a shallow rectangle cut into plaster. Instead, the space stretched, deeper than the room itself, the edges falling away like the mouth of a tunnel. I lifted my phone, thumb fumbling for the flashlight function. A narrow cone of white cut into the dark. The beam swallowed fast, leaving only a thin corridor of visibility. A few feet in, just past the line where my old shoes should have been, Lena stood barefoot on something that was not my closet floor. The surface under her feet was slick and black, glistening as the light hit it. It took me a second to recognize the texture. Wet asphalt. The kind of road that drinks headlights and gives nothing back. Behind her, suspended in the dark as if hung on invisible wires, was the mangled outline of a car. Our car. The nose crumpled, one wheel bent at an impossible angle, glass frozen mid-shatter in the air. It looked less like a vehicle and more like a memory someone had paused halfway through. The flashlight beam shook with my hand. Lena's eyes tracked it slowly, finding me. Water clung to her sweater, beads that never fell. Her hair spooled over her shoulders, dripping something thicker than rain, though it never reached the asphalt. At the edges of the light, just beyond where I could see clearly, other shapes waited. Tall, thin silhouettes, joints too many and bending wrong, bodies narrow as if stretched. They stayed just outside the direct beam, but when I shifted the light, they shifted too, always staying at the border, like insects skirting a flame. Their faces were smeared blurs, features sliding if I tried to focus. They were not rushing us. They were not attacking. They were watching, patient, as if the important part had not started yet. When Lena spoke, her lips did not move. Her voice came from everywhere at once, from the space between my ears, from the walls, from the hollow under my ribs. "Say it," she said. "All of it. Here, where it happened." The words knocked something loose in me. My throat burned. "I saw you breathing," I said. It came out thin at first, then stronger as the silence swallowed it. "I saw your chest move. I heard you say my name." The tall shadows behind her stirred, slow and eager, like tall grass in a rising wind. "You heard me ask you not to go," Lena said, eyes on mine. "You heard the sirens." "I was afraid," I forced out. The confession tore its way out, each word dragging splinters. I was afraid they would say it was my fault, that I had been drinking, that I would go to prison, that everything I was building would disappear. I thought if I left, if I said I panicked and ran. The things at the edges inched closer, their blurred faces tilting toward me, pulled by something in the sound of my voice. The darkness around them thickened, pressing in. "I thought I could live with it," I whispered. If I did not see you, if I did not wait to know, you decided my last minutes were worth less than your future, she said, calm as a statement of fact. You decided to let me die alone. I wanted to argue, say that she would not have survived anyway, that the paramedics had told me later nothing could have saved her. But the shapes around us seemed to swell when the thought crossed my mind, as if they could smell a justification and found it tasteless. That is not what matters, she said, voice softer now. Time is strange here. They showed me. I was in that car a very long time from my side, long enough to know no one was coming close, long enough to understand you had gone. The tall shadows drifted nearer, their limbs folding, unfolding, hungry for each admission. I felt them feeding on something I could not name, as if my guilt was a light they could drink. They? I asked, though I already knew who she meant. She glanced toward the edges of the darkness. The knot faces seemed to lean in. They live where people are left behind, she said. Where doors stay shut. Closets, basements, empty rooms, the backseats of cars on quiet roads. Any place someone decides not to look, not to open, not to help. Her eyes returned to mine. They sat with me when you would not. They climbed into the space between my heartbeats and waited until the last one. They know how it feels to be abandoned. They have been slipping through ever since into the places that remind them of that night. The idea made my skin crawl. All the dark corners of every house I had ever lived in suddenly felt like mouths. You used them to send the videos, I said. I found you through them, she corrected softly. Through the closets you keep shutting. Through the nights you keep trying to sleep as if nothing happened. The shadows swayed, restless. They want something, I said. So do I, she replied. That is why I brought you here. She stepped closer. The asphalt under her feet did not ripple. I realized that to go any further, I would have to put my weight on that same black surface, leave the safe edge of my bedroom, and step fully into a moment that had never really ended. You have a choice, Lena said. I could feel it even before she described it. The pull of the dark, the weight of the light behind me. Come with me, she said. Step into this all the way. Stay where I stayed. Sit where I sat. Make it even. If you do, I will stop asking. They will stop following. The door will close. Her eyes flicked past my shoulder, toward the room I had left, toward the life still faintly humming in the lamplight and the unmade bed. Or you turn around, she continued. You go back into your apartment. You keep your job, your name, your future. But the dark will not belong to you anymore. Every closet you avoid, every light you switch off, every backseat you sit in alone, they will be there. Every night, reminding you. Behind her, the twisted car creaked softly, like metal cooling. The tall shapes leaned forward as one, eager, no matter which way I chose. My palm was slick against the phone. I realized I was still holding it. The flashlight beam the only thin spear of light I had in that impossible corridor. Lena watched me, waiting. There was no anger in her face now, only a deep carved sadness, like a shoreline worn down by years of waves. Either way, she said, you do not get to pretend this time. I closed my eyes. Rain on the windshield. Her voice saying my name. The forest pressing in while I walked away. The sirens. The first video. The text that had sat in my phone like a heartbeat. You left me. The cold reached up from the asphalt through the threshold into my bones. I do not remember taking a step. I remember the feeling of moving, of something giving way inside my chest, like a door finally opening after years of rust. I remember the darkness leaning in, interested. The rest of it I am telling you now. If you have read this far, you know more about me than anyone else alive does. I have described every message, every video, every choice lined up like a row of doors. I am writing this from the same bed, in the same room with the closet door shut a few feet away. By the time you see this, I will already have decided. I finally opened the closet. I made my decision. I just needed to tell someone first. Edit. Please do not look at your closet.